Not exactly Nazi averse.
He's also the father-in-law and grandfather of Jewish children. Come on, Trump has done more for Jewish people. I'm Sicilian who grew up with Jewish people around me. He has spent
He's got a long record of it.
You know what? Actions speak louder than words. He may have said some stupid stuff in the past. What he's been doing, cracking down on Harvard with their anti-Semitic policies.
That is a lie. It's not you know it's not about anti-Semitism.
Really? Look at how Harvard has treated Alan Dershowitz, who was there for 50 years.
Alan Dershowitz has punched his own ticket, my friend. If Donald Trump wants to root out anti-Semitism, he can go over to the Nazi chat room that Twitter has turned into.
In today's topic, we're going to get into an Abby Phillips panel that was assembled to discuss the Larry David, Bill Maher dust-up that's going on. Larry David, in my opinion, rightfully made some comparisons of Hitler and Donald Trump. If you don't want to be compared to Adolf Hitler, stop using his language. Don't use a slogan that began under Hitler. Make America Great Again came from Make Germany Great Again under Adolf Hitler after World War I, a war that he was a part of and Germany lost. So we're going to get into this panel, and I'll give my commentary, and I'll ask you for your input in the discussions in the chat below. Let's get into this one.
Nobody has been harder about and more prescient, I must say, about Donald Trump than me. I don't need to be lectured on who Donald Trump is. Just to use the Hitler thing, first of all, I just think it's kind of insulting to 6 million dead Jews, you know, who, like, that should kind of be in its own place in history. And, you know, I know people can say, well, we're just comparing it in this way. Well, it's an argument you kind of lost just to start it.
That's what you said a couple days ago, Dan.
Exactly.
Yeah, that just using the comparison, you lose people. You know, Batya, I want your take on how that comes across to you, as you are Jewish, and a Trump supporter at that. But what's your take?
No, Bill Maher and Dan Abrams, you don't lose the argument just because you bring Hitler in. If you have someone that is legitimately a comparison to Adolf Hitler, make it. Nobody's going to back down because you guys think that Democrats are going to lose some argument over this. No, you're not going to lose an argument. Donald Trump intentionally wants to be like Hitler, and everybody knows it. And it's people like you two, that are kissing up to these people trying to make us stop using this comparison. Why don't you go after him, tell him to stop doing the things that's making the comparison legitimate? Why don't you do that?
And a person who half my family was murdered by the actual Hitler. You know, in addition to it being deeply offensive to Jews, to call Trump Hitler is to call over 80 million Americans, 35% of Jewish Americans, 56% of Hispanic men, and the majority of Americans who make under $100,000 a year, Nazis, because those are the people who gave Donald Trump his victory. And I just have a pro tip for any Democrats who are thinking about winning back the working class, those people who make under $100,000 a year, who a majority of whom voted for Trump. You should have a visceral disgust for someone like Larry David, who's worth $400 million, sitting there and sneering and smearing the hardest working Americans for refusing to co-sign their own disinheritance. That's effectively what they are doing when these millionaires come out here and call Trump Hitler. They are calling working class Americans Nazis because they chose the person they thought would give their children back the future they were promised by this country. And it just has to stop. And you know what? Honestly, I don't care if the Democrats get this or don't, but they should get this, because this is a big part of why they have lost, because they have these rich people. He is so wealthy. I mean, how dare
they're all wealthy.
Donald
right?
Trump is a
Bill
billionaire,
Maher,
and he
Carl Wealthy,
he pardoned the
Piers
Camp Auschwitz guy. He had Nick Fuentes and Kanye West over for Thanksgiving dinner. He's not exactly Nazi averse.
He's also the father-in-law and grandfather of Jewish children. Come on, Trump has done more for Jewish people. I'm Sicilian who grew up with Jewish people around me. He is fantastic.
He's got a long record of
you know what?
Hang
Actions
on.
speak louder than words. He may have said some stupid stuff in the past. What he's been doing, cracking down on Harvard with their anti-Semitic policies.
That is a lie. It's
cracking
not
down-
you know it's not about anti-Semitism.
Really? Look at how Harvard has treated Alan Dershowitz, who was there for 50
Alan
years.
Dershowitz has punched his own ticket, my friend. If Donald Trump wants to root out anti-Semitism, he can go over to the Nazi chat room that Twitter has turned into. The fact is, Hitler did a lot of awful things that were unrelated to the Shoah, and it is not unfair or inappropriate to compare the policies of this government to the policies of the right.
Okay,
if they
okay,
measure up. No, it's not. Hitler banned abortion. Hitler persecuted LGBTQ. Hitler hated
I
immigrants.
agree with
Hitler
Dan.
hated labor unions.
I agree with Dan and Boccia.
Arthur,
Well, but
Hitler goes in his own little category.
Hold on,
I wish
Arthur.
Hitler was more like Trump.
Arthur
I
and
wish
John,
Hitler
just
spent
give me
all
1
day.
second because I want to take what you're saying because this is an important point, I think, that gets lost in all of the yelling, to be frank.
I'm sorry for yelling.
There was a lot of Hitler talk by Democrats in the campaign. Trump is going to be, Trump is going to do, Trump is going to, right? But I think what they're saying now, Democrats, is a little bit different. Listen to Larry Tribe saying not what Trump has promised to do, but what Trump is doing or has done has historical parallels.
Before we get into Lawrence Tribe and what he's going to say to make his point, I just want to comment on that last segment real quick. The lady, I forget her name, but she's making all of these comments about people being rich and like Larry David doesn't have an opinion just because he's a rich guy. Okay, well, Elon Musk shouldn't have an opinion either because he's a billionaire as well. Donald Trump claims to be a billionaire, but they elected him president, so having wealth has nothing to do with it. John Fugelsang said all of the right things to reply to this lady until this loudmouth, bald-head guy, whoever he is, came in screaming and yelling about this issue. Just because you're loud doesn't make you right. Donald Trump and his administration are doing some things that has parallels to what Hitler and them did. Let's remember, Hitler in his reign started like around 1933. That was well before the Holocaust happened. So there were some things that built up to the Holocaust. It didn't happen right away. And I think the point that many are making is that we're in a stage of this Donald Trump administration that can be similar to the same steps Hitler took before he actually got to the Holocaust, like locking people away in concentration camps, like Donald Trump and them are doing by disappearing citizens and immigrants over to a different country in their prison. That can almost be the same as going into a concentration camp. So the similarities are there. So stop trying to make people halt making the similarities when Donald Trump and his administration are showing you that they are taking a playbook from what Hitler and the Nazis did. So just stop doing it.
Nice little university you have there. Be a shame if something happened to it. That's what Hitler basically said, although it sounds different in the original German, when he said it to the university at Frankfurt and then took them over. That's what Orban has done in Hungary. That's what Erdogan has done in Turkey. It's a standard technique.
The comparisons to Hitler are a loser for the left. I mean,
I agree, but I'm not saying they're not fair.
Well, again, you may think they're fair. The problem is
policies. Yes,
I get it, but
Hitler had only
it's
just
hard.
threatened universities, I would have met my great-grandparents. Like, come on.
It's very hard to draw that line to
I
say,
agree.
well, I'm really just talking about some of the things that Hitler did.
Authoritarianism has patterns.
I got it, but there are other authoritarians to compare him to.
Great, let's compare to Mussolini. I'd love to do that.
But again, you won't get into much trouble as you
I
will
agree
with
with
Hitler.
you. I
all right?
agree. It's a third rail.
Right. It's a third rail for a reason.
Yes.
Because Hitler was uniquely bad.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
He was uniquely evil.
And I think
right?
and really, I think we should take seriously what Boccia's point is about the true, pure evil of mass murder.
Right.
That Hitler engaged in, which you can talk about a lot of other authoritarians and authoritarian behavior, and it's not that still.
Correct.
Right? So I guess her question is fair. Why not just compare him to other authoritarians?
I agree. I do it all.
Again, to you this time, Abby Phillip, it didn't start with the Holocaust. There were some things that were done in between over a 10-year period that led to the Holocaust. The things Donald Trump and his administration are doing can lead to something as bad as the Holocaust. What Vladimir Putin is doing with this war with Ukraine, that can almost be unprecedented. It's getting to a point where some of the things they're doing and some of the things that's going on in Gaza are getting to the point where they're close to what happened in Hitler's Germany. So these things just doesn't happen right away. There's some things that leads up to it, and this is what I think some of the commentators point that they're trying to make. Just because it hasn't happened already doesn't mean it's not going to happen. The Holocaust and the killing of 6 million Jews was a really bad travesty, and the whole world knows it. But it didn't happen right away. And the more you allow these people to get away with the small steps along the way, the more emboldened they become. They're going to keep pushing the envelope to see exactly what they can get away with. So I do not agree with this these people who are talking about the Democrats going to lose the argument, they're going to lose elections over this. Tell the truth. Stop shying away from the truth. Stop agreeing with these Republicans on topics like this. They want you to stop saying these things because they know they are the truth. They don't want their cult leader, Donald Trump, to be have the same cloud over his head as Adolf Hitler. But guess what? He's the one that's doing it to himself. Nobody is telling him to use they're poisoning the blood of our country. They're like vermin. All of these things Hitler said. Nobody's telling him to do that. He's doing that on his own. And that's how he got elected, with people like these people on this panel that voted for him, although he said these things and they know that Hitler also said them. So this just doesn't make any sense what they're saying, in my opinion.
All the time. I'm just saying, and there's nothing that this administration has done in either term that compares to what Hitler did to the Jews of Europe. But nothing compares to it. But there are other really crappy things Hitler did that are not unfair to bring up.
But it doesn't mean that you can't say, for example, when Hitler was leading up to Czechoslovakia, right, and how he went about convincing Chamberlain.
That's why we compare Putin to Hitler.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying, like, you can talk about historically specific things Hitler did that were comparable to other. But what you can't do is make broad comparisons.
Of course.
But that's what Larry David was doing.
Before we finish this video, let's hear what Larry David actually wrote in the New York Times that's got everybody so up in arms.
Trump. Here's a section of that piece. Quote, no one I knew encouraged me to go. He's Hitler. He's a monster. But I eventually concluded that hate gets us nowhere. I knew I couldn't change his views, but we needed to talk to the other side, even if it had invaded and annexed other countries and committed unspeakable crimes against humanity. And I realized I'd never seen him laugh before. Suddenly, he seemed so human. Here I was, prepared to meet Hitler, the one I'd seen and heard, the public Hitler. But this private Hitler was a completely different animal.
Larry David is saying, when you're sitting down with this guy, and he didn't say it's like sitting down with Hitler, but that was the point of the piece, right? Which was in effect, it has the same impact. And that's where you get into trouble. I think you can draw a line and say there's specific historical things you can talk about, but when you make the big picture comparison, that's when you get into some real trouble.
Are they
Shame on
losing?
the New York Times for printing it. How about that? They shouldn't
all
have
right.
been- you know how many letters to the editor they get all the
Do you
time?
want me
And
to-
they don't print.
I don't want
That was one
to
that
not to
didn't need
be
to be
not to
printed.
defend the New York Times. I mean, they did write a whole explanation about why they did it. They said callbacks to history can be offensive, imprecise, or in terrible taste, which some people might argue this is, when you are leveraging genocidal dictators to make a point. But Larry's piece is not equating Trump with Hitler. It is about seeing someone for who they really are and not losing sight of that.
Not since the New York Times published an op-ed from Tom Cotton has there been this much controversy at the New York Times. You know, I mean,
So I'll just say I think these are really important conversations, and I think we should be always talking about all of the history, because this is how we learn, this is how we grow, and it breaks my heart that we have a president who actually wants to erase a big part of what is my history as an African-American woman, as a mother who benefited, who is a white woman who benefited from affirmative action. Again, if we're going to have these tough conversations, let's have all of them. We're not going to say we're going to have this one and not that one. And you get to be at the table and you don't.
I should also point out that, yes, Larry David did not directly compare Bill Maher to Hitler, but J.D. Vance did.
Donald Trump.
I'm sorry, did not compare Donald Trump to Hitler. Yes, sorry, Bill. I love both of these guys, so I'm trying to walk it carefully. But J.D. Vance did. So let's not lose sight of it.
J.D. Vance did, in fact, do that, yes, in his past life.
Yeah, let's not lose sight of J.D. Vance calling Trump Adolf Hitler. These Republicans know that the comparisons are legitimate. They just don't want Democrats being the ones to highlight this to the world. Yes, Donald Trump's vice president, J.D. Vance, at some point compared him to Adolf Hitler. Why? Because the comparisons are legitimate. So we're going to go ahead on and leave it right here. I just wanted to do a video on this just to show you Democrats what we're up against coming in 2026 to try and take back the House and the Senate. And I really wish that we would stop agreeing with Republicans on their points, the points they're going to use to try and retain the House and the Senate. Some of the points that we're making about Donald Trump, the Republicans, are true. Stop being afraid to stand on it. 10 toes down. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one. I appreciate you watching. I ask you guys to like and subscribe and share with your friends. Thank you.